Hey guys, welcome to this video. Thanks so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. And welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness in the highest levels of love light. I'm kind of in the dark here. We've got a little bit of weather brewing, to say the least. And so I'm going to set my intention today to tune into the energy of the weather patterns, of the elements of Mother Earth, Gaia, Terra, whatever we want to label this beautiful planet that we are connected to. First, so that's my intention in this portion of the video. I also wanted to share a little bit about just in general, that many of us, what I've been seeing in communication with my guidance team lately, as well as what I've been seeing and interacting with other beautiful light workers and humans, is that many of us are stepping into a new level of power. And I talked about this in a previous video, but I'm feeling called to address it. And what I was shown is as we step into these higher levels of consciousness or awareness of our consciousness, awareness of our higher consciousness, as we step into these higher interactions with all things, with each other, with ourselves, and as we unzip from the old zip files, the old hard drive, and we come into a less linear expression of ourselves, it can create definite feelings of, well, I still need to do this, or I still need to talk to this person, or I still need to hang on to this job, or I still need to hang on to that relationship. And what I'm being shown is we're really being called to ask ourselves right now what our motivation is for that. Is our motivation coming from obligation? Is our motivation coming from the need to be liked? Is the motivation coming from hanging on to an old concept or idea of who we once were? And also recognizing that as we step forward into this higher power, there is an adjustment period that we're kind of all in. So even though we're being called to jump and go all in, full throttle, we're also being called to be responsible about it. So sometimes we have these massive activations and we're like, all right, that's it, I'm out. I'm moving, I'm breaking up with my partner, I'm going on a vacation, and I'm going to rediscover myself. And then we get these massive downloads and activations. And then a week later, we're like, oops. Not that anybody out there watching this has ever done that, but it's really making sure that we're responsible. So while we're going through these extreme highs and we're being like in full combustion, it's like, all right, if you're not coming with me, I'm going without you. And sometimes that is needed for us to go on a hiatus, to take some time off, to go on a trip by ourselves to a meditation retreat for a week or whatever it might be. We're also being called to recognize that that gives us the ability to reorganize our thoughts, to reorganize our energy, and to recognize that sometimes we have room for all of that. Sometimes we don't feel like we can have those people, places, or things in our lives because we're really needing to focus on the self, but there's a fine line between that and working on the self, right? So it's responsibility is doing it without being selfish, right? We want to be self, grow in our own exponential expansion, but doing it responsibly. So this takes a little bit of finagling sometimes and learning to balance those energies that sometimes we can get swept away in, right? And not getting so swept up that we forget we still are humans. We still have to have roots. We still have responsibilities, and we still have people who may not be keeping up with us. However, that might come back in a couple of weeks and balance out. So if that makes sense, I'm just going to pause for a moment. And recognizing too that these energies have to sustain themselves. So we might get these big bursts. I've had the pleasure of interacting with certain people that are highly activating for me. I mean, every session is highly activating for any healer, but most healers. But what happens is I then get these high releases of cortisol, Kundalini activates, and then all I want is sugar. I don't know if I've shared that with you guys. Recognize that your What you feel like you need to eat might change based on how high these energy. You might need more protein, you might need more water. We've heard all of that. But it really is a thing. I found myself this last week or last month, like sugar, sugar, sugar. And then I realized, because I became consciously aware, oh yes, I had these massive activations and so on and so forth. So therefore, I need to balance that out and maybe not burn myself out, burn out the candle at both ends. And also recognize that that can be the opposite for us. It might be that everybody else around us is going through these really awesome upgrades and activations and downloads, and we've hit a plateau. And that happened, you guys, it's so funny because that's all happened to me in the past 2 weeks. Seems like it's been so long, but it's really 2 weeks. It's like boom, 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 high activations, high energies, and then like nothing, crickets. But we can become addicted to always receiving, always downloading, always upgrading, always uploading, to when all of a sudden we have a lull that is really just meant for us to integrate and enjoy. We can get addicted to, right, more, keeping up with the Joneses, that sort of thing. It's kind of the same idea. So I've been called to share that with everybody and really recognize that. Also, I had some shadow work that came up for me this last couple of weeks. I know we've had a lot of weird planetary retrogrades, and again, astrology isn't my strong point necessarily, but we're all intrinsically connected whether we know it or not. So we've had some planetary alignments, we've had some continued solar, and we've had a lot of strange weather patterns. So we're adjusting to this, and we're in a constant state of influctuation. We're moving and flowing, and then it feels like stagnation, but in reality, it might not be stagnation at all. Something is still happening. We just have to be present with it. For me, the shadow came up this week. I was also gifted an opportunity to see, let's just say, I had a moment where I wanted to defend a friend because another friend perhaps wasn't treating my friend right. And it brought up a lot of things for me. It brought up that feeling the need to protect, and the feeling the need to defend, and feeling the anger and having validation. So what I was shown in a very short amount of time was a lot of shadow. And I'm gonna share this with you guys because it was a big aha for me, or reminder, because this has happened before. I was shown the shadow in, all of a sudden I could see it in everybody all around me. I could see this person was grumpy because of that reason. I intuitively felt that this person was grumpy because of this reason. Like, I just knew they're having family problems. This person is jealous. This person is not necessarily of me, but that's the energy that's in their field. This person is feeling like they're not being listened to. I had all of these like ahas and realizations, but I recognized that my energy level, so there's this idea that if you aren't high vibe, you're not intuitive, and that's false from my perspective. The difference though is, based on our vibration, it helps us to understand intuitively what we're seeing. And sometimes by us dropping our vibration and seeing the shadow in ourselves, I was mirrored, the reflection came back to me tenfold, where I was like, boom, I'm seeing the shadow in everybody. And I realized that that is all a reflection of my own shadow. I had memories that were brought up of times that I had been envious or jealous. Feelings of my own needing to be heard came up. Feelings of anger and towards someone who was not right, not doing the right thing according to what I believed was the right thing. I'm talking a lot. All of this happened in a matter of 24 hours. And I really wrestled with like the shadow because I was in resistance to it. I was in resistance to exploring that depth, the shadowy, watery depths of not being heard, not rising to my own expectations, that I was seeing other people experiencing, yet it triggered it inside of me. And it took a lot for me to stay out of like judgment of all of those shadowy elements or people or versions, personalities, or whatever we want to label it as, and also not to fall back into a place of my own self-reflection where I was judging myself as not good enough, not worthy, blah, blah, blah. I hope that you guys are following what I'm kind of saying here. So within 24 hours, I had that happen. And then I was able to have a conversation with someone who I felt had been, I'm going to say they were misunderstood by me, but it wasn't that they were misunderstood. They were speaking and expressing from their shadow. They spoke and expressed from their shadow. I responded from my own shadow. Rather than recognizing what it triggered inside of me and integrating that response and coming back from a place of love. So that shadow then played off of everybody else's shadow for like 24 hours. It's a lot. And I saw the shapes, colors, and sounds that were associated with these shadows, if this makes sense. If you're clairvoyant or you're open to those things, you might understand kind of where I'm coming from. And if you're not there yet, or you don't realize that you are, that's how it looks sometimes. So I had a meeting with this individual, and I had an idea of how this meeting was going to go, because I was still feeding that shadow, feeling angry. And then I just realized that's what I was doing. I acknowledged it. I took my own advice. I recognized it and I integrated it, and I basically let it go. But it took me 24 hours to process all of it. And when I had this meeting with this person and they were doing things that were further validating my vision of their shadow, I was able to just send myself love in that moment. I just had this intense love, and I thought of all these reasons that I actually do love this person. And I as soon as I shifted and I just let that all go, while I was interacting with this individual, I was able to see them. They dropped I'm sure there's a name for it, but that energy that we were feeding off of each other, I just opened my heart and I sent that space of just, you know what? It is what it is. And that's a version of me that I need to just integrate. That's their stuff, but it's also part of the all. So there was no harm being done. It was more of just an ego thing. So I just let it all go. As soon as I did that, I literally watched a ball of darkness, a little shadow that looked like a little tiny ball, come off of their head and float up above their head, up above my head. And for a split second, I was like, don't you dare land on me, right? Don't land on anybody else in this room either. I really felt grateful for being gifted the opportunity to see it. And I realized it wanted to be seen if I'm going to give it energy and give it a name and give it a label such as a shadow. And I just invited it to return to source. I invited it to return, to clear, to leave the room and go back to source, go where it would be most loved and appreciated. And it left, it was gone, but I saw it literally floating around the room. As soon as it left, I was able to, I was tuning in fully through my heart. I was listening through my heart. By me doing that, it cleared that energy, shifted the energy, and it could no longer be in that space, attach itself to that. Or perhaps it was a gift for me to see it, whatever. And this individual that I was then connecting with changed their vibration entirely and began to share with me something that I found extremely uplifting. And I began to learn more about the sound behind the sound, the reason why they were expressing the way that they were. I began to recognize that that was an attachment to a particular behavior or pattern that they had been habitually recycling, or that entity had been habitually feeding off of because of this energy. And we shifted it in that moment. And I really felt called to share that experience with you guys. I've seen this when I've done yoga. I've seen shadows move off of people. They change their vibration and it just detaches and leaves, or maybe it goes and gets onto someone else who maybe isn't in a place. It's just energy is essentially what I want to get to. And not be in a place of fear about these things. There are people who are starting to see these things, and it can be like, what is that? Scary. For 5 years ago, from when I first started going through it, it was very scary. But those were my own fears. And I was shown a very scary, very big shadow at one time of a particular being who was very powerful. And in that moment, I just had this intense appreciation for being shown that. And just that in itself, I mean, emotional, cleared it, integrated it. I felt such immense appreciation for the experience of interacting and then recognizing that's not what I want to interact with. But I'm grateful that I saw it and I'm ready to move forward or move on. And boom, it gone. So I'm sharing that with you guys because I'm recognizing that this is happening for a lot of people. People are starting to see this in others, and not to get caught up in our own play, in our own acting, in our own reenactment of an old cycle or old habit pattern. And if we are, recognizing and acknowledging it, and then going through that integration for me was like a 2-day thing, 24-hour thing. Whew. All right. So shall we tune into the energies? That was the energy update. And just to share some of my own personal experiences, now I'm going to go into a little bit of the earth codes, or energies that just want to come through. And it might be even based off of what I just kind of shared. So this is, I'll just kind of do some, we'll see what wants to come through and be expressed. Just taking some deep breaths in. You guys, oftentimes these mudras just come through, right? It's mudras that I've been doing for either just now or I'm called to do them. So you can find your own. You don't have to do the hand movements that I'm doing, but if you feel called to repeat after me or make sounds as I'm doing this, it's an interactive experience, right? We're all connected through this medium of light and sound, and we are essentially emerging from that, right? And so this is going to be a little channeling in flow message. And this is, I'm tuning into some, this has to do with the weather patterns and also a lot of the flooding that will be occurring. And simultaneously, it has to do with the fires that have just occurred in other areas. So I'm just seeing kind of everything talking with us right now. I'll do a separate video perhaps with earth codes, or this might be a combination of both. And so as we are disassimilating, so to speak, as we assimilate from one experience into another, we aggravate that which no longer wishes to be assembled. We dissimilate, and certain things that are similarities we begin to bond with. So I'm seeing this all plan where it's like we're similar to this person or that person, we begin to assimilate with them, and we begin to disassemble, take apart that which was, and we begin to recreate new appendages, is what I'm hearing. As we create these new appendages or extensions of us, we begin to void out that which no longer is connectable, no longer connects the dots for us, no longer supplies the deeper essence of life, food, fuel, charge. We begin to reevaluate our experiences. We begin to reevaluate and recognize that which we are becoming. We begin to tune in more with what it is that the earth is becoming, We begin to tune more in with the earth's natural frequencies, and we begin to break out of the arbitrary confines. A lot of this is plain words, you guys. Whew, arbitrary confines that we have been confined into. We begin to remap our signature frequencies and extend out our welcoming olive branch. We begin to welcome others and extend out into the field. We begin to feel more welcome in our own bodies. We begin to feel more welcome in our own shoes, not afraid to walk in our own shoes. We begin to choose different ways of viewing our reality. We begin to choose how it is that we express and experience all that is happening on the earth. For we have been tuning into a particular story that earth is not tuned to us, and most of us recognize that she is deeply intertwined and impacted with our own signatures. So I'm just seeing, let's warm up into this a little bit. Signa, signify, signa sound, significance, significance. Like alphabet, signify, signature. So we are walking signatures. We're walking frequency banks. Each of us holds a frequency and a value system. We then exchange and interchange and exchange this information in a back and forth signature of sine waves. And we begin to wave back to each other, and the earth responds in kind. So part of all of the stuff that's coming up is a response to the need that we have to clear out the debris, the need that we have to change the way we interact with each other. When we have these, and it's also to clear out some man-made things that laid waste to the organic. So there were some things that were created that some of these storms actually flush out. This allows us to create more clairvoyantly. This is a play on words. They allow us to clear and open the voyage of our own path. We then are able to clear the debris from our field that was blocking our path and creating disorganization. For many of the frequencies that have been coming in over the years have created a scattered abundance. So we are tuning into an abundance of scattered energies, which scatters our own abundance. It does not allow us to necessarily see from the higher codes. Hold that thought, hold that thought. Hold that thought.